This is the story of two men locked in a dangerous duel to become the fastest man on Earth. This is a contest between man and nature. This is the challenge to be the first to break the sound barrier on land. For the last 80 years, the land speed record has been a contest between America and Britain. This man has broken the record 5 times. In 1963, he was the first to break through the 400 miles per hour barrier. In 1964, he was the first through 500. And in 1965, he smashed through 600. Now, over 30 years later, Craig Breedlove is back. This time, he wants to push the limit to over 700.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it, so I just figured I wasn't doing too much. So in a kind of lapse of good judgment, I decided I'd build a new land speed record car, and so here I am.
His target is to be the first human ever to blast through the sound barrier on land. No one knows how supersonic speed will affect a land speed car. Breedlove is building his new Spirit of America to find out. He's building it here in the sleepy California town of Rio Vista. It's an unlikely birthplace for one of the most extreme machines ever built. Behind this pink facade is Breedlove's home and workshop. The speed of sound on land is about 740 miles per hour. Spirit of America is designed to go much faster. The car is 44 feet long and weighs 4.5 tons. Its tubular steel frame is clad in polished aluminum, just wide enough to contain its single jet engine, a General Electric J79 from a Navy F-4 Phantom fighter aircraft. It's capable of producing 45,000 horsepower. Breedlove believes that the unique aerodynamic shape of the car will cut right through the sound barrier.
Okay, yeah, so we're clean. We're right through the steel.
Yeah.
And everything will pull back. Yeah, we're cherry.
Yeah.
All right, no problems.
The greatest problem at this frightening speed is to keep the car on the ground. Breedlove has designed his car like a jet aircraft without wings.
If you sit extremely far forward up into the nose, you really don't have much car in front of you. So you have to literally depend on the back of the car staying behind you. The only way that you can do this is through the inherent stability of the vehicle. I guess the best analogy is like a dart that's weighted at the front end and then it has feathers in the back end. And what the feathers do is tend to move the aerodynamic balancing point of the car to the back, and the lead weight on the front moves the center of gravity forward or towards the front. If you were to throw a dart feathers first, it would immediately turn right around in the air and then stick in the wall just like it was designed to fly.
Right now, the world land speed record belongs to Britain. 633 miles per hour was achieved in the huge Thrust 2 by Englishman Richard Noble.
It became a sort of childhood obsession and became a mature obsession, and then there comes a point where you can't really live with yourself unless you really have a go.
In 1981, Noble took his car to Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah, home of all land speed attempts since the 1930s. To achieve his astonishing high speeds, Noble had built Thrust 2 with solid aluminum wheels. But the wheels slipped across the hard salt. He desperately needed a new, softer surface. Black Rock Desert in Nevada was the answer. No land speed car had ever run there before.
As soon as I saw it, I said, this is it. I mean, this is far better than Bonneville ever could be. Here you've got 140 square miles of brown billiard table. And suddenly I felt very confident. I felt, well, hell, we can do it now.
Finally, in October 1983, Thrust 2 shattered the existing record, which had stood for 13 years. Noble achieved an average speed of 633, just 100 miles per hour short of the sound barrier.
Your mental processes are going so fast that you can actually see every single detail on the track come up and go underneath you at 650 miles an hour. And on the first of those 2 rounds, I was actually hammering the side of the car, saying, get on with it, hurry up. 34,000 horsepower, this thing, get on with it, hurry up. Then you have the extraordinary experience. For a few moments, you suddenly realize the team has achieved something absolutely enormous. And then you're faced with an enormous sadness, because basically there's no reason for anybody to continue after that.
But now, Noble is building a new car. He's determined to keep the record for Britain and to beat Breedlove through the sound barrier. When an aircraft breaks the sound barrier, the shock waves spread out harmlessly through the air. But for a car on the ground, it's a journey into the unknown. These shock waves could bounce back and smash the car. Noble hopes that sheer brute force will overcome the problem. His car, Thrust SSC, is 5 tons heavier and over 3 feet wider than Spirit of America. It has 2 Rolls-Royce jet engines, capable of pumping out a total of 106,000 horsepower. It's the most powerful land speed car ever built. Unlike his arch-rival Breedlove, Richard Noble has decided not to take the driving seat.
I really was faced with a decision either to drive the car or to run the project. So I thought, well, I've driven the car, I held the record, so perhaps we'll run the project this time.
He's decided to hand over the controls to RAF squadron leader Andy Green.
It's not going to be a problem. The only time it might be a problem is when we get to high speed and the gyroscopic forces on the back wheels make them really stiff. They have designed a car that will not only do the job, but it'll do it well. And I have questioned every single thing they've done, and they've come up with completely sensible answers to all of them. They have thought it through incredibly well. It is genuinely the best designed car ever to attempt the land speed record.
In this design, Andy Green will sit right at the heart of the massive Thrust SSC.
It's 54 feet long, it's 12 feet wide, it weighs in the order of 8 tons, and it has over 20 tons of thrust, over twice its own weight in thrust. Right from the tip of the nose, where the actual airspeed readings are taken, down across the carbon fibre sections, round the intakes, 2 Spey engines. More air will go down these intakes in 1 second at full speed than circulates through a 2-storey house in 1 year. So if you ever find one of those at the door when you open it, you're going to have all your furniture sucked out in about half a second. My cockpit's situated exactly between the engines. It's the strongest piece of the car. Another advantage of a twin-engine car, you build the strength of the car in the centre to take the loads of the 2 engines. I sit within that structure. We have the strongest safety structure ever created in the history of land speed record breaking. We have 2 computers monitoring all the sensors on the car. We have 50 pressure sensors, because obviously the airflow is one of the very critical things about the car. You can see some of the pressure sensors right underneath the cockpit floor where I sit, actually checking what happens to shock waves underneath the car when it goes supersonic. The computers will also be controlling the car in terms of its pitch attitude to make sure that it runs with exactly the right amount of aerodynamic download, so that it never has a chance of either flying if we pitch too much nose up, or indeed mining if we pitch too much nose down.
Driving at these speeds is a fine line between life and death. The aerodynamics of the car are critical. A conventional wind tunnel can't duplicate the effects of the ground moving under the car at supersonic speeds. So the team ran a computer program normally used to test supersonic aircraft. A small error, such as the nose being a fraction of an inch too high, could cause the car to leave the ground with catastrophic effects. To confirm their computer predictions, the team then took a model of the car to a military test site. They used a track normally reserved for accelerating shells and missiles to high speeds. At over 800 miles per hour, they fired a rocket-powered sled to propel a 1/25th scale model of the car down the track.
If the results matched up, we could go forwards. If the results didn't match up, we simply would not know which one to believe. And the extraordinary thing was that when Ron brought that data together, we got an almost perfect match across a huge spread of cases and different applications. It's a totally brilliant piece of work.
Computer analysis and the model tests agreed. Now they were sure it would be a safe car. As they finally wheeled out the completed chassis of welded tubular steel, the design concept had become a reality. The shape is designed to keep air resistance to a minimum, and this has imposed a controversial design constraint. They can't use front wheel steering. The width of the car would be too great, so they've built it with rear wheel steering.
Because there was a lot of doubt about steering rear wheels, we've actually built a technology demonstrator, which is that rather curious Mini that has the rear wheels steered. The important thing about that is we've proved it's not only going to work, but it's going to work better than steering the front wheels.
Critics believe that rear wheel steering is only fit for forklift trucks. Noble disagrees.
The interesting thing was that once we cracked it and got it right, I could drive that Mini at 90 miles an hour to an accuracy of 1 inch, again and again and again. I slalomed it, and I tried to see whether it would diverge and get away from it, but it wouldn't. And I suddenly realized the thing was perfectly safe, and therefore we got it.
My design philosophy differs quite a bit from their philosophy. The sense where thrust SSC differs, of course, is in the ground interference areas, the rear wheel steering, which in my view can be problematic. It's like you're going to get a great dinner party, and by doing some of these things, they've invited a lot of real rowdy guests that they're going to have to deal with during the dinner party. And, if you can go through your guest list a little better, perhaps you can just not invite those people. And so we've tried to just invite all the good people that don't cause us any trouble.
Breedlove doesn't believe in using models or wind tunnels.
It's obviously greatly speculation on my part, but it is speculation founded on experience and founded on a life's work in this area. I think I know what I'm doing anyway, so I'm going to build the car, put the instruments on it, we'll go up slow and see what it does. If I need to change it, I will.
Every component in Breedlove's car is custom built. The wheels are forged from aluminum at a cost of $15,000 each. The tires are wound with millions of threads of carbon filament. This will help to prevent wheel fractures. Any damage to the tires at high speed would only rip off individual threads. A conventional rubber tire would totally disintegrate. One of Breedlove's most innovative designs is his low-speed brake system.
What I've done is come up with a brake that I call my Fred Flintstone brake, and what it is a ski that hydraulically is lowered out of the bottom of the car, and it simply makes contact with the ground, and then the friction between the ski and the ground, it says here, will slow the car down and bring it to a stop at low speed. So we built a rig for the back of the pickup truck because we wanted to test this before we actually put it on the car and bring the car out here.
They also have to test the engine before it goes in the car. A 30-second test with full afterburner uses 60 gallons of gasoline and almost rips the engine loose from its heavy mountings. But the test is a success. The British thrust team is shaken by Breedlove's rapid progress.
It's It's obviously a very different concept. I mean, very much quite literally a black and white approach. His is a white car, it's small, single engine, very slim, very much the minimalist approach. Ours is the very much over-engineer when in doubt, twin-engined, stable, safe, safety-conscious approach.
While Breedlove is an old hand at driving land speed cars, Andy Green is a complete beginner. So the team has built a simulator to let him practice for the big event.
Approaching the speed of sound now, 0.98, Mach 1. We're now supersonic, 3 miles into the run. Approaching 780 miles an hour, approaching 4 miles into the run, we're doing Mach 1.05, still accelerating at approximately 15 miles an hour per second, 820 miles an hour, entering the measured mile, 830 miles an hour, 4¼ seconds later, end of the measured mile, 840 miles an hour, easing off the throttles, putting out the chute. We get a slight kick from the chute as the car starts to slow down, slowing down, losing about 50 miles an hour per second, and easing on the carbon-carbon disc brakes, rolling the car to a halt. It will have taken approximately 9 miles to complete that, almost stationary now. The car has stopped, 1 minute and 15 seconds, peak speed of 840 miles an hour, supersonic land speed record.
Andy Green's day job is as a fighter pilot in the Royal Air Force. He was chosen to drive Thrust SSC from a short list of 16 men.
We wanted somebody who was very, very solid. Somebody who was obviously very intelligent, because we didn't want somebody giving us sort of stupid information off the cockpit. And then what we wanted to do was to stress them up a bit.
To test their powers of concentration, the candidates were kept awake for 24 hours and subjected to high temperatures. Every 2 hours, they were asked to do complex eye-hand coordination tests.
The extraordinary thing was that after those people had come out of the heat chamber, after 24 hours, very few of them had degraded at all. Mere mortals would have, so like me, would have failed dismally, you know.
The best 5 were then asked to drive high-performance cars. And the final test was to meet the Thrust design team.
And I think probably that any one of them could have made a very, very good job of it. But there is one selected driver, and the selected driver is Andrew Green. Congratulations, Andrew.
It's something that's never been done before. It's a world first. It's a real challenge. It's pushing back the boundaries of human endeavour to actually become involved with part of the team that's going to build the world's first supersonic car. It was a chance I just couldn't turn down.
On the other side of the Atlantic, Spirit of America is on the move. Bonneville Salt Flats is a huge dried-up salt lake with a hard, flat surface.
It's a very majestic spot. It's, unique in all the planet, probably. It's very beautiful out here. It's white, clean. When the wind comes up, there's not a big dust storm. I set all my previous records here, so it's nice to come back.
Crew Chief Dejo Molnar is in charge of setting up the camp on the Salt Flats. It's a complex operation.
I just feel so blessed to have these guys around me that are my team, that are so supportive. It doesn't just involve yourself anymore. It's bringing the record back to the United States. It's going into the arena and putting your soul on the line and hoping you don't screw up, and trying really hard.
Is 100 feet wide, so I can put 100 feet.
Anyone making an attempt on the land speed record has to work to strict rules laid down by the International Ruling Association. Before any car runs here at Bonneville, the ridges in the salt have to be scraped smooth. The track is then marked out with thick black lines. The all-important driver's guideline is laid right down the middle. Volunteers from the Utah Hot Rod Association help to clear the course and pick up debris that could be sucked into the engine or damage the wheels.
Most of what we're looking for are sharp objects. Some are so small that it could just rip a tire like that, and that's what we want to try to prevent. So we'll be walking about 7 miles today, and we will turn around at the far end and we will walk back the same course, only we will be concentrating on the other side of the course. We don't expect any pay, we just love the sport of racing.
It's just like, seeing your child come home. It's really nice, yeah. It brings a tear to your eye. It's been a long, long struggle to get it here. So it's a happy moment.
There's still a lot of work to do. The crew works 18 hours a day, every day. Unforeseen problems hold up their first run, and it takes 2 weeks before the car is finally ready. The first time Breedlove came to Bonneville was in 1949, when he was only 12, and he raced his first car, a Roadster. But his first taste of real speed was as a teenager, in a converted aircraft fuel tank fitted with wheels. He reached an astonishing 236 miles per hour. At the age of 22, Breedlove raised enough cash to build his first Spirit of America, to break the world land speed record. It was powered by a jet engine, so he had to persuade the official Timing Association to establish a new category for jet-propelled vehicles.
It's a car, believe it or not. In Los Angeles, Craig Breedlove unveils the Spirit of America, his jet-powered three-wheel streamliner designed to go 500 miles an hour or more. Breedlove will attempt to better the late John Cobb's 15-year-old mark of 394 miles an hour and bring home to America the world land speed record. All America is with you, Craig. Good luck.
To break the world land speed record, a car has to run twice in opposite directions along a measured mile. The turnaround has to be completed within 1 hour, and the official speed is the average of the two runs. Breaking records is never easy. It took Breedlove 2 years before he finally clocked up his first record of 407 miles per hour in 1963. Breedlove's was the first jet-powered car to break the record. With his youthful good looks, Breedlove became an overnight worldwide celebrity. In 1963, a new generation of jets arrived on the Salt. Over the next 2 years, Breedlove lost and regained his record 7 times. But breaking through the 500-mile-per-hour barrier came at a high price.
He's roaring. He's coming into the mile. He's really moving. He's out of the mile. I see his smoke trail. Something came off of the car. He lost his chute. He lost his chute. He's out of control. I see him coming. He's coming. He's moving right along. He's really pouring it on. Here he comes.
Spirit of America had sliced through a telephone pole at 400 miles per hour and plummeted into a deep salt pool. Miraculously, Breedlove was unscathed.
See
brakes, and the brakes just wouldn't go. I pumping the brakes all the way down. No brakes at all? Nothing, no brakes at all. And then I hit my other chute, and nothing happened. I thought I had it when I hit the floor. I saw that telephone pole coming, and I said, oh. And I went like that, and gritted my teeth. gritted my teeth, and that pole just sheared off like nothing, you know, boom, and no pole. And I thought, oh boy, another chance. I looked up. I hit the water, and that water started slowing me down. I seen this big old bank coming, I thought, oh no. And the water was filling up like that. I thought, what a way to go. All this and I'm going to drown.
Next run, scuba here, baby.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? I broke my racer.
Only 1 year later, Breedlove was back with a new car and a bigger engine.
You could never give up. I mean, you just got to keep going, no matter how hard it seems to be and how much in doubt you are about the outcome. You can't stop.
There was more trouble ahead. Once again, his parachute broke away. For the second time in his life, Breedlove was streaking across Bonneville out of control, narrowly missing the exact same telegraph pole. This time he managed to keep the car intact. A few months later, he became the first man to drive at over 600 miles per hour. Once again, he was the talk of America. Breedlove's record stood for 5 years until 1970. When Gary Gabelich arrived at Bonneville. Gabelich smashed Breedlove's record with an amazing 622 miles per hour, a record which stood for 13 years, until Richard Noble took it from him in Thrust 2 in 1983. A decade later, and a new battle is about to begin. Bonneville Salt Flats, 7 a.m., and the Spirit of America team hopes that today will be the day they get to run their new car. The plan is to make a low-speed test at less than 100 miles per hour.
And this one's for...
Breedlove also wants to check out the condition of the course. He's far from happy. Local chemical companies have been mining salt and damaged the salt flats. It's still good enough to test the car, but not to break records. Breedlove has applied for permission to move to Black Rock Desert, Nevada, where Noble claimed the existing record.
The salt is pretty much the consistency of mashed potatoes. You know, if we can get on Black Rock, then we'll have, you know, just dust, and that won't be a problem.
Until he gets permission to move, he has to contend with Bonneville. It's late afternoon before the car is ready. The light is fading, but Breedlove is determined to go ahead with the run. Breedlove creeps carefully along the course to get a feel for how the new car handles. He reaches 80 miles per hour, and the car performs well. But in the failing light at the end of the run, he drives onto rough salt. The team spends the next 5 days cleaning salt off the wheel bearings to prevent them from seizing up. They also have to replace delicate electronic sensors.
I gotta get something done here.
Meanwhile, in England, just 10 hours later, the Thrust team wheels out their new car onto an airstrip for its first run. This is the culmination of more than 2 years of research and 75,000 man-hours. The project is sponsored by over 200 different companies. Andy Green is full of confidence.
The actual concept of getting into an incredibly powerful vehicle is an ordinary daily occurrence for me. So the fact it's the world's most powerful car, I can turn it around and say, it's as powerful as an aeroplane I've been flying for the last 10 years. It's not actually a big deal. In a way, the fact it's half as heavy and therefore will be twice as fast, half as heavy is a good thing. That means it's twice as easy to control. The whole concept is we're building a safe car and then we're going to make it go faster. And part of that is to take it as a prototype car, exactly like we would a prototype aircraft, and develop its envelope gradually. Take it out very slowly the first time, build the speed up very gradually. We have 147 sensors on board. The computers will be checking all of those so that we actually know everything that's happening about the car all the time. So it's by no means a dirty dash for the land speed record. It's going to be inching it up very gradually. As a natural consequence of that, we will go supersonic.
Because of the short runway, Green is limited to only 200 miles per hour, but the car has performed well.
The engines both come up perfectly together. Everything in the cockpit is now fitted and working perfectly, so it's absolutely ideal. The rear wheel steering, which was a huge question about, well, what's it going to be like steering from the rear? No problem at all. It's been really, really good, so it's been great. Exactly as we wanted, exactly as we expected. The car's been very well behaved.
Next stop for the thrust team is a desert in Jordan, where there will be plenty of space for high-speed runs.
Can't wait to get out there and start working the car up towards the land speed record and ultimately towards the speed of sound.
Breedlove and his crew have now been camped out on the salt flats for over 3 weeks. Record-breaking is a long, arduous process. Breedlove is recovering from a second run at 200 miles per hour. These low-speed runs are particularly uncomfortable.
It's a very rough ride. It's not, you know, you can get bounced around pretty good. I bruised my back, put my head into the top of the canopy, and, you know, had a few neck pains from it. So it does bounce you around a bit. You know, it's not like an easy chair or anything. The car handles quite well. It steers well. It goes where you want it. You know, it's a real exciting, fun thing to do.
Next day, Breedlove is ready for his third run, which is planned to be a lot faster. This will be the big test for both him and the car.
Clear, Chris? The plugs at the lifting points, please.
We're all in our places with sunshiny faces, for this is the way to start a new day. There's a part of me that's frightened because I haven't done it for a long time. Sort of apprehensive. I'm wondering if I still have it, if I've, you know, grown too old to do this kind of a crazy thing. It's a difficult thing to do. I mean, land speed records are easy to talk about and hard to do.
The plan is for this run to take the power one step further, to use 90% of the engine capacity, but without the afterburner.
Again, just is familiarization, and we're checking the salt scraping devices we have on the back of the wheel to try and keep the salt out of the fairings. And, you know, should be a nice ride.
Breedlove reaches a peak of 360 miles per hour. But as he releases the parachute, the car skids violently. Breedlove struggles to keep the car under control. It is only his experience that prevents disaster.
Put some nuts on the inside.
A badly shaken Breedlove takes off to check the course, leaving the crew to figure out what went wrong.
Did you see the chute come up?
Yeah.
How was it?
The chute, well, you know, I was concentrating on the chute. The chute looked stable to me. It was high. It was running high, okay? And then I saw the car start to move to the side.
He said one wheel locked up.
I asked Craig what he felt, and he felt that the chute was towing him to the side.
It looked like it didn't deploy and stay inflated.
We'll have to discuss that further.
Okay, right here, the rear wheel's starting to track back over the center.
Your right wheel, your right front's starting to track in hard here.
This is where the chute opened, right here. It just pulled the back end of the car out from under it, so. I was full lock right where you're standing, and I was just leaving. Couldn't do anything about it. I just turned hard lock right there.
It just turned the car sideways, and I was full right lock by there, and I couldn't do anything about it.
Obviously, we got to correct the problem, so this is pretty dangerous, so it is right now. So this is part of what we're doing. This is my job. This is what it's like when you take a brand new prototype out. You have to get all the bugs out of it. Fortunately, we didn't go, faster than we did. Anyway, we're all here, and it's all in one piece, and we're going to fix what's wrong, and we'll take some action, and we'll try it again.
The team prepares the car for one last run on the salt before they move on to Black Rock Desert. Suddenly, there is an unexpected incident which completely devastates Breedlove.
I had my dog Midnight killed last night by a motorist that was kind of careless, and so that, I'm not feeling too good today. And, the only thing there is in life is love, and the rest of it's Phil. So, a real important part of my life got lost yesterday, and, I'll get over it. The record's Phil. I just want to get out of here. Right now, I don't care if I ever see Utah again. So, try and get some space between losing Midnight and, running the car.
The thrust team are on their way to Jordan. Even to get there is a challenge. To relocate the 75 tons of equipment and 25 people, they borrowed the Antonov 124, the world's largest commercial airplane. The flight to Jordan will consume over 34,000 gallons of fuel, donated by sponsors. For the British, the land speed challenge is now a reality. At last, Breedlove has a competitor, even though they will race on opposite sides of the world. The Al Jafar Desert, Jordan. The last Briton to make the headlines here was Lawrence of Arabia. The thrust team has chosen this new location for its size and supposedly perfect climate. The team has now been camped out here for 3 weeks and has so far only run the car once. They've had unexpected technical problems, which involved flying in replacement parts from England. They've also had to clear the track of stones and debris. They've cleared 17 separate courses, each 10 miles long. But even with all this careful preparation, the courses were far from perfect. On the first trial run, Thrust hit a Bedouin track which runs across the desert. The rear steering wheels lost contact with the ground for over 75 feet. Today, they plan to run the car again. To make sure this huge desert is kept clear of wandering Bedouins and camels, King Hussein orders his military police to keep them out of the area. Coordinating all communications for the Thrust team is Andy Green's girlfriend, RAF Squadron Leader Jane Millington. Once she's confident the course is clear, she'll give Green the signal to start his run. After final mechanical improvements, the car is ready for its second run. The plan is to accelerate to 350 miles per hour, but without the afterburner. If the car runs well and Green is happy, they will slowly build up the speed over the next few runs.
A crucial thing about this is that people tend to think, that this is a kind of one-day wonder and what you're going to do is go out and sort of blitz down the runway. The reality is this: it's a long, sort of drawn-out and very boring process, actually. And from the spectator point of view, seeing a car run like this is a magic moment, that there are hours and hours of waiting around and hours of testing, etc., before it can actually go.
1 0 minutes to run. North team acknowledged.
2 hours later, and Andy Green gets the clearance to climb into the cockpit. Thrust is finally ready to blast down the course. In just seconds, Thrust reaches a speed of 331 miles per hour. There's a problem with the rear wheel steering. The wheels are vibrating badly, causing Green serious problems. Back at base camp, the engineers rebuild the steering mechanism. But the unexpected happens. The weather changes. High winds whip across the desert, and 5 days pass before conditions are calm enough to run the car again. On the next run, they plan to reach a peak of 400 miles per hour, switching on the afterburner for the first time. But once again, Green experiences steering problems. At 300 miles per hour, he aborts the run.
The steering didn't feel comfortable and it was starting to drift, and when it started to drift left, I actually just let the car go, let it come off the line, and just shut the engines down, put the parachute out, because the steering at the moment still needs more setting up.
The team needs more steering components flown out from Britain. But while they sit and wait, the weather deteriorates again. Within a 24-hour period, 50% of the annual rainfall pours down on Al Jafra Desert. With money running out, the team is forced to return home. Their top speed was only 331 miles per hour. Meanwhile, the Spirit of America team finally receives permission to run on Black Rock Desert. It is the largest dry lake bed in North America and a perfect place for land speed attempts. The course is 13 miles long, and the surface is sun-baked hard earth.
Actually, I love the surface. It's very, very good. For the first time, we actually had room for safety in case the parachutes didn't function, and that was very nice. It's a venue of choice for me. This circumstance, which is very unique, gives you probably the ultimate sensation of speed that you'll ever have.
As Breedlove reaches a top speed of 448 miles per hour, he begins to get a feel of the true power of the car. It takes him less than 90 seconds to cover 10 miles. Four days later, Breedlove runs the car again. To break the land speed record, he must achieve an official two-way average of 639 miles per hour. First, he wants to test his parachutes, so he restricts his speed to under 600 miles per hour. But there are still problems.
It turns me sideways, Desert. I mean, it's a horrible, violent ride.
Even though they've lengthened the parachute line, the canopy is still twisting the car sideways.
I mean, I wanted to see if it worked.
Sure, well, so we don't.
And it doesn't. Yeah, right. It's terrible.
I mean, at some point, I guess you probably lifted the back end up, and that's how you buried the nose and hit that panel.
Right now, I'm scared to even use it.
I mean, it just... This guy here has been blasted. Look at this. He lifted the...
Yeah,
I don't know what you did here.
Well, we're going to have to take the car back and repair it.
I understand.
The team worked through the night to cut down the size of the chute. The following morning, they planned to test the car at 600 miles per hour. It was a run that Breedlove would never forget. Just a mile down the course, the car exceeds 500 miles per hour and is out of control.
I mean, I knew the instant the burner lit that we were in big trouble. I mean, we were way over the top power-wise. We just were not anywhere close to that in our test program. My only option was to shut the burner off and then turn it back on and then shut it off and then turn it back on, which is quite destabilizing in itself.
The car continues to accelerate to 675 miles per hour and suddenly tips onto its side.
You don't know whether it's going to go completely over and start tumbling or just what.
With all its weight on one side of its body, it skids across the desert for 3 miles.
You know, I was very confused as to why it did that. And, you know, in my mind, I was going, you know, what caused this?
Eventually, Breedlove manages to get the car back on its wheels.
Had to then put it in another slide to get it turned around so I wouldn't hit the mountains.
It took him 2 more miles to bring the car to a halt. Despite the problems, he traveled at 90% of the speed of sound, faster than any other man. Spirit of America had gouged a long scar across the desert. For Breedlove, it was the end of this year's attempt at the record.
You can't find these things out until you go run. I mean, that's really my job, which is being a test pilot and finding out what it does. You have to take the car into areas that it's never been before and see what it does, and then hopefully come back and fix it.
Spirit of America returns home to be rebuilt by the team. The bodywork will be easy to repair, but they are more concerned about the damage to the internal structure.
My biggest concern is that this left pylon, we worked on this one for about a year. Best case scenario, we bent the frame. Worst case scenario, we bent the axle beam. So there's a very good chance that this left side has been bent in. The whole car is just generally, it's an inch narrower in the back than it used to be. It fits really nicely in the truck now.
I feel badly because there was a lot of damage done to the car, and it has to be fixed now. I get maybe a little job security for the winter. I don't know.
The fastest race is still to be won. As soon as their cars are back in shape, the Spirit of America and Thrust teams will return to chase the elusive record and to break the sound barrier.
That's never ever been done before. That's a real major achievement. That is the Everest or the walking on the moon of land speed record breaking. Trying to make it not only the fastest car on Earth, but the ultimate land speed record car.
It is one of the most exciting things you can do on God's Earth. And once you've done it once, then of course you always want to continue.
I really enjoy doing it. It's nice to do something well, so I get a lot of satisfaction from that. I know how to do this game, and I know how to win at it.